Good morning, everyone. It's Christy, and we are here for Fabulous Friday. So I hope you guys are ready for the weekend. Can I just tell you how ready I am for this weekend? For some reason, it's a little dark in here this morning. I don't know what's going on. I have my Dunkin' this morning, and I can't even tell you how much I need coffee this morning because, wow, what a week. What a crazy week. I have had more phone calls, more issues, more buyer and seller just out of control craziness this week than I probably can count for the last 16 years in real estate. And I think a lot of you are seeing that too. So today on Fabulous Friday, I wanted us to kind of troubleshoot and talk a little bit about some things that we're seeing in the marketplace, some questions that I've had over the last few days and weeks, and kind of some of those things about options and ideas that we can use for some maybe pretty tricky situations that some people have found themselves in when we have some of those challenges that come up. Because sometimes you just don't know what you don't know. And, you know, a lot of us kind of muddle through this. I've seen recently some situations that I've never encountered in my entire time in real estate. So wanted to, first of all, throw some credit out to Weissman. Guys, I know not all of you use them, but I will tell you from a broker standpoint, from an office standpoint, I have never once called Caitlin when she did not pick up the phone. She did not call me back, text me, answer my questions. Guys, utilize this amazing resource that we have. And if you have never closed with them or you've never given Caitlin a chance, here's my shout out to you guys in the office. Give her a chance. She has bent over backwards in the last 2 weeks to help me and to help a lot of our agents through some very crazy stuff. So here's a couple situations. Not going to give names for agents. Obviously, when I go through this, if they listen to this, they're going to know who they are. But some situations that happen and how we can overcome some of these if you or your clients kind of get stuck in some of these situations. So first, one of the biggest things that I've been asked numerous amount of times is, hey, Christy, I'm stuck in a multiple offer situation. This is why I'm not writing timelines or a timeline on the bottom of my purchase and sale agreement. We don't know when they're going to get back to us, or they're calling highest and best. What do I do? And now you're asking me to go back and put it on my contract. I don't know what it is. All right, guys, so let me kind of tell you what's important about timelines and putting timelines on purchase and sale agreements. Obviously, we know they don't put a line or they don't put a fill in the blank on a purchase and sale agreement or on any contract form for that matter, unless there's a specific reason. All right, so if it's on there, you need to take note of it, regardless of what it is. It may not be applicable to your situation, but it's on there because it was or it is applicable to a situation. The time limit is no different. And even if we have to go back, make an amendment to the time limit, or we have to extend a time limit, there is a reason for a time limit. If we put no time limit, that leaves things open for interpretation. We know what happens with that. Everybody says, what happens when you assume something? You make a you and me, right? Chop that word up. All right, we don't want to do that with any time limit. So if you feel that the time limit is or could be an issue, put an extended time limit on there. At any time, if a time or at any point a time limit is expired or exceeds, as long as all parties agree and they agree in writing, a time limit can be superseded by an agreement in writing. For instance, you put a time limit on there for today at noon, but at 1 o'clock, all parties agree to that contract and sign and it is bound, then all parties agree in writing. So the time limit was surpassed, but yet all parties agree in writing. Does everybody follow me? But you still need that time limit on there. Now, it would be very challenging to stand up in court because, of course, understand, my brain goes back to what would happen if this went to court and is in front of a judge or is in front of an arbitration situation. So that's where, if I question anything, that's where my knowledge goes back to, and I go back and look up court cases and things that have happened where this has been questioned. In these situations, yes, it may not be challenged if you write a contract and don't put a time limit on it, and 2 years later somebody comes back and accepts it. Yeah, that's probably not going to happen, and I understand that. However, you don't want to leave anything open for interpretation, or that someone could come back in 2 weeks, 3 weeks, and say, okay, I accept this offer now. Well, you didn't put a time limit on it. Obviously, to some extent, something has happened, or we wouldn't have a time limit on offers anyway. All right, so there's the first thing. So let's just really pay attention to that. The second thing that I've seen recently is we have had quite a few situations where probate and or death of buyers and sellers have come up, which has been very a bad circumstance, but a very challenging circumstance when it comes to real estate contracts. So I'm going to throw this out and let you guys know. You do realize that a contract doesn't die. Okay? In the state of Georgia, other states as well, but in the state of Georgia, a contract doesn't die. A contract has to be consummated, which means closed, or a contract has to be terminated. It doesn't die, so if somebody doesn't show up to closing, it doesn't just go away. If somebody doesn't, as we're having now, if a seller just decides, I don't want to sell my house, I'm done, I don't want to sell it, it doesn't just go away. A buyer can't just walk away from a house, right? A contract has to be consummated, or it has to be closed, or it has to be terminated. So in that situation, when you have a purchase and sale agreement or a listing agreement or a buyer brokerage agreement where someone has signed it and then that person unfortunately passes, what happens? Okay. First and foremost, for those of you who don't know, it's fantastic if that person has a power of attorney. But the power of attorney terminates when the person passes, because a power of attorney is only good if the person is alive, because a power of attorney passes my rights to someone else as long as I'm living. If I'm deceased, there is no power of attorney because I have no power to give anyone. All right, so that's the first thing. Second, in the state of Georgia, you have to probate. Okay, if there's an executor of an estate, the executor doesn't automatically, because someone is deceased, gets the right to sign for someone else. All right. Now, all of this is spelled out in an actual booklet that you can get from the state of Georgia, the Secretary of State's Office for Probate. A lot of craziness goes into probate law, but very generally, for our purposes in real estate, executors have to be appointed within a will or within the court system, the judicial system. They also have to have what's called letters of testamentary, which means the court has to, or the state has to acknowledge that this person can sign on behalf of the family, on behalf of a person. So if you do not have letters of testamentary, someone cannot sign on behalf of someone else. So if you have a trust or if you have an estate, just because it may say in a will, or it may you may have a client that says, oh, well, I'm the executor of this estate. If they don't have paperwork where the court system has appointed them or they have been recognized legally as that, they can say it all day long. It doesn't mean that they have a legal right to sign. We've seen that now in multiple cases in our office. So if this comes up and you get confused, please come and talk to me. Caitlin at Wiseman can walk you through a lot of this as well. There are ways that you can work around it. There are ways that we can write special stipulations. We can try to hold harmless the agent and the family and try to hold deals together. However, I will tell you a circumstance that we're dealing with, that the seller passed away. The buyer still wanted the house. Our office was representing the buyers. However, because the seller passed away, the contract is no longer valid, right? Because the person who signed the contract is deceased. However, because the contract doesn't die, something has to happen. Okay, so what did we say before? The contract has to be consummated or it has to be terminated. Well, it can't be consummated because there's no one to sign until the letters of testamentary, the executor is appointed that can sign on behalf of the family, on behalf of the estate. Well, the letters haven't come in. So time came for closing and there was no one to close. The buyer still wanted the house. Well, in order legally for the buyer to be able to get the earnest money back, which our job is to protect the buyer. So our job is to make sure the buyer's interest is taken care of. We needed to ensure that we did what we needed to do to get the buyer's earnest money back. So we had to be the ones to terminate the contract because we can unilaterally terminate. We could actually even request the earnest money, petition to the attorney's office. Thank goodness Weisman was holding it as well. And the family could say, yes, we understand the situation. They wrote a letter and said, we know we can't sign because we know they want their earnest money back. The family wants to sell the house. The buyers want to buy the house. But legally, there's no one that can sign at this point to continue the contract until the letters of testamentary come in and there's an executor. So there are certain unfortunate circumstances. We have another situation where husband and wife, the husband signed to sell the house. Unexpectedly, the husband passed away. The wife is not on the deed. They're going to have to go through probate to allow the wife to be able to sign on behalf of the husband to sell the property. Now, in some circumstances, depending on the county, it doesn't take as long. One, it's taken forever. We've been dealing with this since February. It's almost May. The other one, in a different county, it's going to be taken care of in the matter of a month or so. So it really just depends on the circumstance. As we have access to gsccca.org, you can actually pull up every deed that you are working with that buyer working with that seller listing the property and or the buyer to figure out the property that they're purchasing to find out how the deed's written. If you see on the deed of the property that it is joint tenancy with right of survivorship, you know that if something happens to one or the other, that the other one can sign, because if you remember license law and you also remember your real estate school and your tenancy and deeds, which, by the way, for those of you who are new agents, here's where it comes in handy. Remembering real estate school, you know that joint tenancy with right of survivorship means that if two people own the property together and one passes away, all the rights go to the other person. You don't have to probate to be able to sell the property. Now, if you just have joint tenancy, you're going to have to probate because you each own an equal share or the rights to your share in the property. So there are some different ways that deeds are actually written, and you need to understand. Granted, we're not attorneys, so absolutely, here's where it comes in handy that we have Weisman on our side. Pick up the phone and make those calls, ask those questions. But this is where it's very important that you understand what questions to ask. Okay, so there's two situations that you really need to have the foreknowledge to know what to do, how to keep your buyers and sellers calm in those situations if they do come up. Okay, now talking about keeping calm, what about us, right? How do we kind of keep calm sometime? Here's another situation, because I can tell you it's kind of hard for me to keep calm. Speaking about crazy probate and death and all this stuff, we have another agent who has worked very hard, worked with a seller / landlord for many years, has worked with them and had properties rented out properties for them, has worked with them and sold properties, and he unexpectedly passed away. Okay, so he's done several leasing agreements for him, put people in his homes, and has sold investment properties for him. And all of a sudden, when he passed away, the family got another real estate agent to handle all of his real estate business, which, okay, kind of digs in the side a little bit, but okay, it happens. But in one of the contracts, So this is why you should know your contracts. One of the contracts, it says that if the tenant purchases the home, the tenant that we put in place purchases the home within X amount of time being in the home, that the landlord, the seller, the owner will pay to our brokerage, to Coldwell Banker, a certain percentage at the close of the property. That's in most leasing agreements, right? Because if I put a tenant in there and the tenant then decides, hey, you know what, I'm gonna buy this property. Well, I procured the tenant and now the tenant wants to buy the property. I need to get a percentage of that commission because I pretty much procured that sale and put that person in that house, right? And that's what the agreement said. Well, and finding out that this was the situation, the tenant is now going to purchase the property. Our agent went to the now estate, now to the family, and said, hey, this person's purchasing. My contract says this. Crickets, right? Even though the contract said it, we had a contractual agreement. Now, the person who signed everything was deceased. But remember, consummation, termination, right? So it's still a contract. We still have legal rights to be compensated for doing what we said we would do. That's the difference in real estate. We're compensated because of the service we provided. We still provided that service. We still put the tenant in the house. So therefore, we now have to take action to get in touch with the estate, to get in touch with the attorney's office and say, hey, this compensation is deserved because here again, the contract was already signed. The tenants have already now gone under contract. The tenants maybe have already purchased the home. So we've had to escalate that up. But those are the kind of things you need to very much understand your business, your contracts, and how to handle those situations when they come up. Now, is it always going to be crazy? Yes. Yes, it is. It is always 100% is going to be crazy. It's real estate. It may not be crazy every day, but you're going to have some very weird situations. I mean, I told everyone a situation one day that I listed a home and it had gone through 4 attorneys. And I was the one that found out that the legal description was wrong because I used the state searching index and pull things up and saw that there was 2 different acreages listed, from the tax records to the survey, the plat. And I'm like, wait a minute, there's something going on here. Did a little bit more digging because I know the land had been parceled out and found out that 3 of the 4 parcels had the same legal description. What? Yes, and it had been through 4 attorneys, and yet the real estate agent figured that out, right? And my seller had owned it for 15 years, right? So we had to go back through, pull up that first attorney, make sure that attorney got it changed. Now, yes, we got it changed, but it's for you to be aware. We deal with people's properties. We deal with the biggest investment most people will ever deal with. Because we have a fiduciary responsibility to people that we work with. This is a wonderful, huge opportunity to really impact people's lives. So any questions that you guys have, let me know. Take this seriously. A lot of times we talk about the joy and the fun of connecting with people. But on the flip side, we can really make a huge impact by just being knowledgeable, keeping calm, understanding that in a lot of the chaos, we are the voice of reason, knowing who we can contact, like our awesome lender who's here in the office, like our awesome attorneys at Weissman and Caitlin who support us and who are here for us, like Kathleen and myself. You guys got us. Use us. We are here to support you guys in all of this because you know what? As corny as it sounds, together, everyone achieves more. And that's what we're here for. So guys, I hope you have a fantastic Friday. Not to make things too heavy. Get geared up on some caffeine. Go out and crush your day. And I'm super excited about how awesome you guys are going to be this weekend. Talk to you soon.